Composition can be described as the organization of elements on the paper or canvas. In this context, we're talking about the organization of paint marks on the paper. In this street scene, I will give you 3 tips to help you compose your next painting. I'm using watercolor for this painting, but these tips will apply to any medium. The street in the scene is located near Downtown Crossing in Boston. In the distance, you can see the Park Street T station. If you're not from Boston, the T is the subway system. Let's jump right into tip number 1. Organize your lines of direction. When painting an architectural subject like a city or street scene, your lines of direction will be your long street lines, your buildings, and the horizon. These lines will lead the viewer's eyes towards specific areas of the painting. Many times this is the focal point, but not always. In this painting, the leading lines are also the perspective lines. It is important to get these right, especially when painting architecture. You can find a lot of videos on perspective on YouTube, but let me know in the comments if you want me to do a video on perspective in the future. Jumping into tip 2, select your focal area. The focal points are the area or areas that you want the viewer to focus on. There's nothing wrong with having more than one focal point, but it's a good idea to identify a primary center of focus. So how do you choose your focal point or center of interest? Sometimes this is an easy question to answer. For example, let's say you're painting a flower or multiple flowers. There's a good chance that one of those flowers will be your center of interest. You would plan that painting around that choice. It's a little bit trickier when painting a street scene. I'll pull up the reference photo for this painting so you can see what I mean. What's the first thing you notice when you see this photo? It's not the most exciting scene, but there is a strong emphasis on lines of direction. That's right, the same lines of directions that I referenced in tip 1. We're going to be building on concepts throughout the video, so there is going to be a little bit of overlap. It's the perspective of the buildings on either side of the street that create the strong leading lines of the image. Overlaying these lines on top of the buildings, you see that these lines converge to a single point in the distance. That's your vanishing point. It's safe to assume that the viewer's eyes are drawn to this point, but in this painting I did not want that point to be the focus of the image. I would need to use other tools to counteract the strong leading lines: contrast, brightness of colors, and level of detail. That being said, I selected the orange awning on the right side of the image to be the main focal point. That leads us to tip 3, incorporate movement and rhythm. This concept is related to lines of direction, but uses shapes, disconnected or connected, to guide the viewer's eyes around the painting and through focal points. Let's bring back the leading lines from tip number 1 to help describe this point. By themselves, you can follow these lines from right to left or left to right. Without anything interrupting these lines, you can move as fast as you want into or out of the page. Add in a few windows, building ornamentation, and you create a rhythm of element. The spacing, the color, the shape, the complexity, these will determine how fast you move along each of the leading lines. Here's another way to think about it. Imagine one of our leading lines is a single, uninterrupted music note played by an instrument of your choice. Feel free to leave a comment below about the instrument you're imagining in your head. Just like our line, that music note has movement. With music, we're moving through time, unlike our line, which is moving through space. We all understand that in order to add rhythm to our lonely note, we need to add other notes and pauses to it. These notes can be long, short, harsh, soft, hard, and will likely have different tones. Apply the same concept to one of our leading lines moving through space. You add elements to the line that can be short, long, soft, harsh, or can be different from adjacent shapes. And now you've added rhythm. It's up to you to identify the rhythm and patterns of your reference image and apply those to your painting. Remember, we're not blindly copying the photograph, we're creating a painting. Let's jump into an example of how I incorporated rhythm and pattern in this painting. Looking back at the painting, there's definitely areas that I see now that can be improved on, but for now it's enough to get the point across. On the left side of the painting, you'll notice the leading lines of the building are interrupted by vertical light posts with connected flag posts and flags. They're not connected to each other physically, but because you recognize them as the same object, they are related. Your eye is led deeper into the painting by the rhythm of each post and flag. Notice the direction of the flag posts, how they point towards the right hand side of the painting where our focal point lives. This occurred in the reference image already, but I chose to emphasize that. That's it for the tips. I don't know if I said this in the beginning of the video, but I'm Lonnie and I make art videos, and if you get any value out of this video, don't forget to hit the like button. Stick around to the end of the video to see the final painting. Thanks for watching.